title of the video?
Video 37, something about writing. So I have a plant in the back of my shot, and I know I make it roasted by how dead it looks, but this is a transitionary period where the winter prunes away old and crusty leaves, and now spring has come so that you can have newer and healthier leaves, and I just didn't have time to cut away the old and dead leaves. So, 大家好，欢迎来我的频道. My name is Bianca. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but still related. Writing! Riveting! I know, the most fun topic in the world. We've spent so many years in elementary school learning how to write in print to be legible or in cursive, because apparently you're only allowed to write in gorgeous calligraphy cursive script as an adult. And I was shocked when I realized that many adults write in chicken scratch just like me. And actually that's always been a sore point for me growing up. Since I am left-handed, it was always super hard to write. My hand always dragged on the paper, so it got stained by pencil, pen, marker, you name it. The lefty pens either never dried fast enough or always bunched up on the paper, because as a lefty, you push the pen across the page instead of dragging it across the page like right-handed folks. That's why we get this weird blubbing as well as cuts in our writing. So my handwriting is trash. Went through periods of trying to make it pretty and bubbly like the other girls, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, but I honestly just gave up in high school. I actually had a professor tell me to only write in print because my writing was so illegible. But based on our experiences growing up, writing was clearly something important. We write all the time, don't we? In this age of technology, it's actually less common to write. We take notes on our laptops, use voice memos to just jot things down, text or call to communicate. And I write a decent amount when I'm in the lab, but that's mostly because I need written records of everything that I'm doing and why, and even those ultimately get converted to online lab notebooks for that glorious future IP that is the property of the company and not me. I'll get on the patent though and get some sweet cha-ching in the form of pennies. Woohoo! But it poses a great question. Is writing actually necessary? Do I actually need to learn how to write in my target language? Won't that just slow me down? Isn't it a waste of time if I can just type everything out? And for languages that utilize an alphabet, it will be probably easier to learn how to write by just sounding out the words. But pay attention to those exceptions. English exceptions are still the bane of my existence. But for a language like Chinese, is it really necessary when you have pinyin to help you type? There is no point in learning the stroke order of super complicated characters when you can just use a pinyin keyboard. But what does the neuroscience have to say about this? And you'll probably see tons of articles just touting the benefits of handwritten notes as compared to digital notes. So let's parse through a few of them and look at the original studies to determine the actual benefit of writing. Is writing useful? Writing prevents absent-minded transcriptions. So let's imagine that you're in class listening to a lecture. You're writing down notes by hand while your friend next to you is just typing away at their computer. And as you're listening to the lecture, you're trying to write everything down that you hear as quickly as possible on your paper. But then your hand cramps up because spoken word is just so much faster than written word. You then peer over to your friend who just perfectly transcribed the entire thing. Bianca, didn't you just prove that digital notes are better? You got every single word down from the professor, which means that you didn't miss anything. But what's happening when you're transcribing the lecture word for word? You're not listening to the connections between the words. What does that mean? Words strung together have shallow meanings, but there's also meanings that play into the larger web of words, thoughts, ideas, patterns, networks of information. No thought is ever isolated, but rather it's composed of variations of thoughts, additions and retractions. It fits into other thoughts and confirms or refutes or enhances or retracts from those thoughts. So what happens when you transcribe verbatim? You miss those nuances and you miss the bigger picture. You know the thought, but how does it relate to the other thoughts that you transcribed? You don't know. So you know the words that a professor said, but do you really know how those words are used? Probably not. So what happens? Your transcribing friend ended up confused and didn't really get much out of the lecture, so they had to relearn the material on their own time. But what about you, my handwriting friend? The limitation on speed actually helps process information. Because you have to go more slowly, you're actually listening for the most important bits of information to jot down. The bits that actually connect thought to thought. The bits that give larger meaning and greater implications to the string of thoughts that your professor is presenting. You're recognizing patterns and forming connections just because you don't have the time to write something down that's not important. You are processing more than you are writing, and that is the important bit. Writing is a tool to help you process information, but it's not the end-all be-all. Our goal is to learn information, and writing is one avenue to help you recognize patterns and form connections in the broader network of thoughts that is language. So why is writing important for all languages? You are forced to process the components of language. You're putting yourself in a position where patterns will just pop out at you, which will ultimately help in language retention. Reviewing handwritten notes can be a more tedious process as well. With digital notes, you can just copy and paste to reorganize. Oh, you forgot a title here? Oh, just add it in. You missed a piece there? Just make a new section for it. Handwritten notes, on the other hand, take time to be modified and edited. Going from haphazard lecture notes to a well-constructed, cohesive reference document takes more time in a handwritten format. You have to rewrite everything. And because of the limitations of handwriting, you're forced to read through everything and actually synthesize the most important things. You look through the various detailed bullet points and summarize them into overarching themes, thematic structures. By now, you should know what I'm alluding to. What does this process of reviewing and summarizing lead to? Increased pattern recognition and memory consolidation. So great, writing is awesome in a lecture format, but learning a language isn't really the same thing. I'm not really transcribing language, I'm just writing it down. That kind of sounds a bit pointless. Well, let me pose this question. What is brute force memorization? Isn't that just aimlessly transcribing words over and over and over and over again, without the context of sentences, without the larger narrative at play? And this is actually super common advice for languages like Chinese. Memorizing vocabulary is easy, it's just tedious. You just gotta get through the brute force of writing and then you're good to go. And my boyfriend has told me stories of writing characters down thousands of times and having to rewrite them if they're not beautiful enough. Yeah, if you write a word down a few hundred or thousand times, you will learn it. But is it really the best way? Probably not, for the sake of your sanity and preventing carpal tunnel. But that's something I need to learn for myself because lab life really gives you carpal tunnel. What can we do instead? Treat writing down vocabulary as if it's writing down notes from a lecture. Apply those same concepts of pattern recognition and summarizing to learning vocabulary. Pay attention to the way that a word is constructed. These are like the detailed bullet points that you decided were important enough to write down in your lecture notes. They tell you important information about this specific concept. For vocab, that would be various components that comprise a word. Since many words are built up from smaller parts that have individual meanings, it can be very helpful to recognize these little pieces and see how they're used in different words in different situations with different nuances. There's a reason a huge part of SAT prep is identifying Latin roots, prefixes, and suffixes. And we should also write down sentences instead of words in isolation. After understanding what a word means, you need to learn how it works. You need to take those detailed bullet points and find the overarching themes that link those various bullet points together. Sentences give you the necessary context to make connections between the words and help you to understand nuance. Combine written practice with visual and auditory sensory experiences. We can write things down, and that can be a very tedious process at the beginning. So make it more enjoyable by reinforcing the other language skills that I spoke about in my video last week. Check that out if you haven't already. Read the sentence out loud when you write it down. Listen to the sentence as you write it down. Listen to the sentence and then try to write it down from memory. All of these will enhance memory consolidation and active recall. And that's basically the TLDR for the benefits of writing in your target language and the steps to actually materialize it. But in order to write something down, we kind of have to learn how to read it, don't we? So we'll talk about that next week. But if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, a comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and we're doing pretty well in terms of subscriptions and comments, and I really enjoy seeing our community expand and grow and support each other and give each other advice as well. And if you're interested in supporting me as well, check out my Patreon, check out my Instagram. I've been pretty lacking on it, but I'm gonna try to make it more consistent. Things have just been very busy with PhD stuff, but now that's pretty much out of the way. I can focus more on the other stuff in life. But yeah, check out Standard Mandarin Weekly as well. I have a 5% discount code in the description, and we will talk about that in 2 weeks, I believe, 2 weeks, to get a deeper dive on how we can actually utilize various tools to improve our extensive and intensive reading comprehension. But I will see you guys next week. Have a good one, and 再见.
Cut.